Low wind across open plains. A distant church bell. There's something unsettling about small Midwestern towns at night. The empty grain silos, the lonely church steeples, the endless black stretches of road where headlights disappear into nothingness. And in western Iowa, one town became the center of what many still call the most terrifying exorcism in American history. Hello and welcome to Midwest Shadow Files. My name is Dan. I'm your host and your Midwest Shadow Files storyteller. And tonight's case takes us to a convent in rural Iowa in the summer of 1928. A woman arrived by train under secrecy. Priests refused to discuss her publicly. Nuns were warned not to speak of what they witnessed, but whispers escaped anyways. They said the woman spoke languages she never learned. They said she knew things that she couldn't possibly know. And they said she levitated. Whether this was demonic possession, severe mental illness, mass hysteria, or something else entirely remains one of Iowa's darkest mysteries. This is the story of the Earling Exorcism. This is the episode that really had me take pause from my old podcast, Iowa Shadow Files, as I read the book that and the pamphlet that kind of went along with this, and I'll get into that here shortly. It really caused me to really think about these stories. This is one that was, well, a little scary, to be honest with you. And it really starts in August of 1928. A woman in her 40s arrived in the tiny town of Earling, population barely a few hundred people. Her real name may have been Emma Schmidt. Other sources identify her as Anna Ecklund, likely a pseudonym used to protect her identity. What everyone agrees on is that the Catholic Church believed something was deeply wrong with her. According to reports later published in the pamphlet Begone Satan, Emma had suffered disturbing symptoms for decades. She allegedly became violently repulsed by religious objects. Holy water made her scream. She couldn't enter churches. She reportedly heard voices urging her toward horrific acts. And then there was the stranger claims. Witnesses said she spoke in Latin and German despite lacking formal education in any language, and priests claimed she displayed abnormal strength. Some even believed she possessed supernatural knowledge. Now, before we go further, it's important to understand the time period. This was rural America in the 1920s. Mental illness was poorly understood, psychiatric medicine was primitive, and belief in literal demonic possession was far more common than it is today. Still, even by the standards of the era, this case disturbed the clergy. The church assigned a priest named Reisinger to perform the rite. Reisinger already had a reputation. Some priests believed he had successfully performed multiple exorcisms before, and others considered him extreme, obsessed with demonic influence. But if anyone was going to confront what they believed lived inside Emma Schmidt, it was him. Emma was taken to a Franciscan convent attached to St. Joseph's Parish in Earling, Iowa. The exorcism would last 23 days. Think about that for a moment. 23 days of prayers, restraint, screaming, exhaustion, fear, and according to witnesses, things escalated quickly. Reports say Emma reacted violently. The moment prayers began, she allegedly hissed, growled, spat at priests, and cursed those around her. Nuns claimed her voice sometimes changed completely, becoming deep, almost sounding like an animal. And I'll pause for a moment and I'll say this much. It actually even began earlier than that. When she got off the train, she immediately attacked the priests that were greeting her there. Now, when she got to the convent, one account claims she could identify blessed objects hidden in the room. Another claims she knew private sins confessed only to priests, and then came the most famous allegation of all: levitation. According to later retellings, Emma's body allegedly rose from the bed during the rite, and one witness claims she clung impossibly high on a wall inside the room. There's another story that says that there was a nun that sprinkled holy water on the food. And there's no way that she could have known that she'd done this. And so when she came and she gave her the food, she immediately threw the food against the wall and said, "Get this away from me." Now, obviously, there's no photographic evidence, there's no recordings, no modern verification. Everything comes from written testimony by clergy and religious witnesses. But that testimony became legendary. The room itself reportedly became unbearable. Witnesses described foul odors appearing suddenly. Emma allegedly vomited repeatedly despite barely eating. Some accounts described swelling in her face and body so severe that nuns feared she would die during the ritual. And through it all, Reisinger continued reading the Roman rite of exorcism for hours at a time. Latin prayers echoed through the convent day and night. Imagine being one of the nuns, a tiny rural convent in Iowa. Thunderstorms outside, candles flickering, a woman screaming in languages you don't understand, and every adult in the room genuinely believing the devil might be present. One of the strangest details in the case involves the identities of the alleged demons. According to accounts later published in Begone Satan, the possessing entities eventually identified themselves during the exorcism, and among the names reportedly spoken, Beelzebub, Judas Iscariot, and the spirit of Emma's alleged abusive family members. Yes, you heard that right. Some versions of the story claim that Emma believed she had been cursed through witchcraft by family members during childhood. To modern listeners, this sounds impossible, but psychologically, it raises fascinating questions. Was Emma experiencing severe trauma response, religious psychosis, or were priests unintentionally shaping her behavior through expectation and ritual? Because once everyone in the room believes they are witnessing demonic activity, every movement becomes evidence. Every scream becomes supernatural. Every coincidence becomes a sign. And yet, even skeptical historians admit this case is unusually well documented compared to many paranormal stories of the era. It's not proven, it's not verified, but it's documented. And that distinction matters. Now, here's a story that really stuck out to me as I was reading Begone Satan. As the exorcism dragged into its second week, exhaustion began wearing down everyone involved. Priests rotated in and out of the convent. Nuns reportedly slept only a few hours at a time. And according to later accounts, some clergy began experiencing terrifying events outside the exorcism itself. One story centers on a priest assisting Father Reisinger during the ritual. According to the account, the priest was called away unexpectedly to attend to a dying parishioner several miles outside of Earling. Despite warnings from Anna during the exorcism sessions, warnings that allegedly came in a voice witnesses claimed was not her own, a voice that reportedly told him, "If you leave, you will die." And guess what? The priest left anyway. And on the rural roads outside town, his vehicle was reportedly struck in a violent accident. Some versions say his car overturned in a ditch. Others claim he collided with another vehicle after losing control on a muddy road. But according to the story, he survived. Shaken, injured, but alive. And when he finally returned to the convent, Anna allegedly looked directly at him and laughed. Not politely, not nervously. Witnesses described it as mocking, triumphant, and then according to one account, she said, "You should have died." To believers, this became further proof of demonic knowledge and influence beyond the convent walls. To skeptics, it sounds like coincidence wrapped in fear and religious expectation, but moments like these are exactly why the Earling case became legend. Not because of one single event, but because every strange occurrence seemed to feed the terror already growing inside that room. But there is another story that kind of surrounds itself with this exorcism. Did this inspire The Exorcist? By the 1970s, whispers about the Earling case had spread far beyond Iowa. Many paranormal researchers believe elements of this case influenced The Exorcist and the original novel by William Peter Blatty. Now, officially, Blatty said his story was inspired primarily by a different exorcism case involving a boy in Maryland, but researchers have long pointed out striking similarities. The levitation, the hidden knowledge, the violent reactions to sacred objects, and of course the extended Roman Catholic ritual. And in recent years, the Earling story gained renewed attention through books, documentaries, podcasts like mine, and even a new horror film inspired by Emma Schmidt's alleged possession. Why does this story survive? Because it sits in that terrifying gray area between religion, folklore, and psychology. If you're religious, it may reinforce belief in spiritual warfare. If you're skeptical, it may reveal the frightening power of suggestion and untreated mental illness. Either way, it's disturbing. So what do modern experts think happened in Earling? There are several theories. Theory number 1, demonic possession. And of course, we start here because this is really the basis of what's really going on here with this exorcism. That Anna came and she was possessed not by one demon, but by several. And for believers, the answer, like I said, is simple. The witnesses were credible. Multiple clergy reported similar events, and the Catholic Church approved the rite. To them, Emma Schmidt experienced genuine possession. Theory number 2, mental illness. Psychologists point to conditions like schizophrenia, identity disorders, severe trauma, epilepsy, and psychosis. Emma's symptoms, voices, paranoia, altered behavior, violent episodes could align with psychiatric disorders untreated in the 1920s. That is a possibility, and religious obsession can heavily shape how mental illness manifests. A deeply religious person suffering psychosis may frame hallucinations as demons. But there is a third theory: group hysteria. Others suggest a form of collective suggestions. Remember, everyone involved already believed demonic possession was possible. Inside an isolated convent, under stress, sleep-deprived, ordinary events could become exaggerated into supernatural experiences, especially over 23 days. Oh, and there is one more. Theory number 4. Embellishment. Finally, some historians believe the story simply grew over time. Retellings became more dramatic, witnesses' accounts evolved, publishers sensationalized details because terrifying stories spread. This is how the whole concept of lore becomes what it is, especially stories involving the devil. So today, Earling is quiet. Most people passing through would never suspect it became ground zero for one of America's most infamous paranormal cases. I will stop and say this much. If you were to visit Earling today and you visited where the convent stood, it's no longer there. They tore it down. It makes total sense. That was a place where extreme evil took place. They tore the convent down. It's not. It is a blank yard on the side of the Catholic Church. And yet, here we are nearly a century later, people still debating what happened in that convent room. And maybe that's why the story endures. Not because we know the truth, but because we don't. Because somewhere between faith and fear, medicine, myth, lies a mystery no one has fully explained. And in lonely Midwestern towns, mysteries have a way of lingering. Next time you drive through rural Iowa after dark and you pass an empty church surrounded by cornfields, ask yourself this: if something impossible happened there, would anyone believe you? Thanks for coming along on the story of the Earling Exorcism. Thanks for listening to Midwest Shadow Files. If you enjoyed tonight's episode on the Earling Exorcism, follow the show for more true stories about America's forgotten backroads, including haunted farmhouses, vanished travelers, cult legends, and explained encounters buried deep in Midwestern history. Of course, until next time, keep your lights on, keep your eyes open, and watch for the shadows. This is Midwest Shadow Files.